Hello, my name is Brenda Price. I'm the Associate State Director at AARP Michigan. Welcome to our Black History Month series. Starting today, Tuesday, and every Tuesday in February, we will have an excellent program for you to see, get some information, and hopefully move forward on your own genealogy searches. We thank you for taking the time to be with us today also, because we know your time is important. AARP wants to be a good resource and fierce friend for our members and audiences over 50 plus and their families. We include the family because what we say, what we do includes family. But again, we appreciate you being here today. We have a broad range of programs at AARP that we offer around health, self, and wealth. You are welcome to join any of these programs virtually that are aired throughout the country. To access that information and find out more about our programs, you can go to aarp.org. You can check into your state, you can look at other states, and you can look for events. And the postings will be there, registration information, all of what you need to join any of our programs online and in person in your state will be online. Again, we appreciate your time. We know that many of you are caregivers, so your time is important. AARP has lots of resources for caregivers, veterans, if you're interested in fraud information, fraud that's even happening in your zip code. You can find all of that at aarp.org. Just go to the search engine and type in the subject matter that you are most interested in. And you will be surprised at the resources that we have available for you at the tip of your fingers to get connected and get informed and get engaged, including volunteerism. We could not do the work that we do throughout the country without our volunteers. Volunteers in every state. If you are interested in volunteerism, please go to the website and check us out. Today, our program is going to focus on the basics of doing genealogy research. It is not just for beginners because there's information in here for the seasoned person, maybe to just freshen up your memory. But we are sure you are going to enjoy our program today. And today, I have joining me hosting the program is a volunteer in Michigan, but she serves the country. She supports our volunteer work around the country. Joining me on the show today is Dr. Mary Clark. Dr. Clark?
Thank you so much, Brenda. I am so pleased to be here with you.
I am so glad you are here. You are the inspiration for this series. I want to tell you that. I can recall some time ago where you mentioned to me that genealogy was your passion. And so I said, I have got to connect with Dr. Clark so that we can put together this fabulous series. And you brought it all. You brought all of the stars for the series for the next weeks. So I really appreciate having you. And I'm going to step back and let you get started.
Thank you so much, Brenda. And welcome everybody to this phenomenal series. Just like you, I am just thrilled to be a part of what AARP has set up for the next 4 weeks. We have some genealogy superstars, as Brenda indicated, and it is my honor to introduce our first superstar. She told me to keep her bio brief, but I have to give you just a few tips about our speaker today. Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy is the Descendant Project researcher at the University of Virginia, where she spearheads the study of the enslaved laborers who laid the university's foundational stones. Her background spans nonprofit and local government work focused primarily on affordable and fair housing and discrimination issues. She's an avid genealogist of over 30 years. Dr. Murphy, who is affectionately known as Family Tree Girl, was born and raised in Michigan and now lives in Central Virginia. She's known for her inspiring and interactive sessions and her So What genealogy research methodologies, along with interesting problem solving and methodology lectures. And she loves a good timeline. Dr. Murphy is also the coordinator and instructor of the Midwestern African American Genealogy Institute, which is where I became familiar with her. That's also known as Maggie. Her resume is extensive, so I encourage you to go to the website and read more and more. But finally, I want to say that she is one of the respected voices in the genealogy arena. She's been featured prominently on many platforms. She's presented several times at Roots Tech, which is the largest family history conference in the world. Her insights on tracing African American roots were showcased on CNN with Victor Blackwell and on the Today Show with Craig Melvin, reflecting her expertise at the global level. Without further ado, and with all the honor and privilege that I can draw to share with you, I'd like to present Dr. Shelley Viola Murphy.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. It is my pleasure to be here and to be here in the AARP community. I am a strong member, so I am in the right place at the right time. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk genealogy because that's what we love to do.
That's our happy place.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So as soon as she brings up the slides, we'll go ahead. All right. And we'll get started on the basics for researching your roots, Genealogy 101. So a quick overview, basically, I'm going to talk about the discovery that connects you to your roots, the reveals and the stories that come from what you learn on that journey. The session will assist you with getting started, or also, if you're experienced, maybe it'll give you some new tips to try. We'll introduce you to some tools, some technology, and some resources, and we'll also share some problem-solving activity per se, or also tips. You will also get exposed to navigate vital records and other key things that help you get through your journey of finding your ancestors. So one of the first things I'd like to talk about is just what is genealogy. It is a buzz. You know, from the movie Roots back in 1977 and Alex Haley and the whole tribulation to his ancestors. That kind of got everybody going pretty much. And so genealogy is really about the study of family and then tracing of those ancestors and, of course, their descendants, which will also come right to you. It also involves looking at records, listening to oral history, documenting oral history, and sometimes people will tap into DNA analysis to help build their family tree. It's important, and this is definitely the message we want to get across today and throughout the whole month, that it is important to do this research. The tracking of family history helps us understand where we come from, connects us to our roots, and also preserves our family stories for the future. So it plays a critical role in also, preserving your heritage, traditions, and so forth that get passed along down to future generations. There's 3 reasons why you should do genealogy. Again, understanding your heritage, preserving those family stories, and also building a legacy that will go on once we're gone. Just how many ancestors do you have? This is a slide from Ancestry or Ancestry.com. And it points out that, yes, we have 2 parents. And as you'll see, then it goes to grandparents where we have 4. So it starts doubling. So look at the work. Most people center around or can get to typically the 4th and 5th generations. Some can go further. It just depends on what resources are available, what time frame you're looking at, and so forth. And a lot of folks have even made it to possibly 1 or 2 or just 1, say 10th great grandfather or grandparents. But I don't know of anyone in my realm that has met the total amount. But again, this is the journey. This is how many we're looking at. And it gives you an eye view of what you're going to be trying to follow. So you're going to know about your grandparents. And then you got to know that there's going to be 8 great grandparents that you'll be researching and so forth. I want to explain that there is no magic when doing genealogical research. And the reason I say that is because this takes time. You're going to have to research into records. You know, there's going to be missing information. There's going to be challenges. It just does not magically appear. The work will have to be done. And once you get connected, you're hooked. This is almost what they call genealogy pox. It's an addiction once you start researching your family. So starting with your genealogy journey, you want to gather information. This goes back to when we were all young and in school, we learned about the how, the where, the what, and the who. That identifies people. It could identify places. It can also identify a document. Who's on it? Who's involved? You want to be able to set some specific and realistic goals. A lot of people will say, I want to know everything about the Clark family. Well, let me roll you back a little bit. Instead of saying everything, let's take a little bit, one step at a time. Maybe you start off with, I want to make sure I know where my grandparents were born, where they were raised, where they went to school, when did they get married, and where were all the children born. And then I'll move on to the great-grandparents. So that's a little more realistic, and it's not overwhelming when you're going step by step. So you always start, and this is a key that we use throughout the genealogy community, is start with what you know. And that's how it comes to starting with you, then your parents, grandparents, and so forth. And another thing I want to insert here is to select one of the lines, either your mama's line or your daddy's line, and try to get your feet wet going there and working on their line, because they're going to connect, of course, when they become your parents. So again, select who you're going to research, but also understand why you're researching that line. And a lot of reasons I got started was helping my mother. And her reasoning was because she sat at the feet of her grandmother, and her grandmother always talked about the past. You also want to take an opportunity to interview family members and make sure that you do a lot of family members, because everybody could have heard something different depending on who was sharing the story or telling that story. So interviewing the elders, but also interview those that are not elders, because again, they could have information or received information different than yours. And you always want to document your findings. You know, where did you get the document from? What page was it from? What year was it from? Same thing with the oral history. You want to document who's telling it, where were you at, what was the date, and who also was there with you. And if you have the opportunity to obtain permission to record, that's an excellent way for you to also go back and review what you've received. So once you document your findings, you also have the opportunity to use charts and forms if you like those kind of things. Some people will have stuff in a binder. Some people will have stuff in an album, or it might be in a box that's got separations on family lines within it. So you decide what you want to use and what you'll be committed and doing consistently. The charts are wonderful. Love them. I love the forms because I like things to be in order. That might be something that you choose to do. And again, you want to make sure you record all of the record sources and where you got them. Genealogy is really about time, place, and asking a lot of questions. So this is Murphy's Rule, and I teach this across the country. You want to follow the money, the land, the water, the community, and the faith of the people. This is the foundation for conducting genealogical research. It doesn't matter if you're European descendant or you're African descendant or whatever it is. This is the foundation for you. You're following the money because people had to pay taxes. Where's the businesses? What's the plantation doing, or what is the farm doing? What was your ancestors' business? Were they a shoemaker, or were they doing other things? Maybe they had a plant farm or something. So again, there would be records. And of course, in the case of enslaved folks, you're going to see the buying and selling of people. You also want to tap into the land. Why do I say the land? Because during the colonial times, that's the place where the records are at. That money is moving, but the land is being bought and sold. And in case of African Americans, the property is land, but also the human property. And so you want to make sure that you're tapping in where your people landowners, where they sharecroppers or whatever. Following the water, another big one. I get this question all the time. What do you mean by water? Well, you got migrations. And when migrations happen and people basically get in the wagon and get on the road, they're not going to be far from water. So you could almost trace with a map, which is very key, is to trace folks on their path from going from one place to another. I had people in my own family leave West Virginia, formerly Virginia, and make their way, stopping in Ohio, and then making their way to Michigan, where they become a homesteader and file an application in 1863. But I could trace their steps by where they were, oral history, but also being able to find documents. And then I want to look at the community. You want to look at the whole. Just don't look for the Clark or the Murphy family or the Price family or whoever your ancestors are. You want to find where your people are, but you want to know who is around them. And is there any connections? One of the tips I'll share is, okay, I'm researching folks that came out of Virginia. So when I go look at one of the resources, I'm going to look to see if anybody else was born in Virginia. And again, this is a way of looking at the whole community and not just looking at your individuals, because there could be connections. Family doesn't stay too far away from family. And then the last one is found the faith of the people. People migrate for various reasons. Jobs, family, religion. Those are reasons that people could be migrating or making movement. But when they get to a place, that's also where the first place they're looking for. If there's a church in the community, you can understand that's where they're going to go. Then they're going to probably look for a school for the children. So again, Murphy's rules: follow the money, the land, the water, the community, and the faith of the people. So just what do you do first? Well, the first thing you want to think about is getting the information. Get a pen and paper, start taking notes. Or if you're going to do everything online, start typing, start a document up and start typing everything in it. But the first thing is get a pen and pencil. And then begin always with yourself. You're basically writing down when you're born, where you're born, and then you're going to go to your parents. Focus on which one you're going to follow, and also ask the same questions. Where were they born and when? And then who are their parents and so forth. You want to talk to the elders, as I mentioned earlier before. So now start making a list who you're going to talk to. And then note any of the oral histories that you heard about or somebody mentions once you're interviewing them. You want to get more information about that. Okay. And then you're going to attempt to collect as much information to fill out the 5 generational chart, which is on the right, which again is going to start with you and then your parents are going to be above and below you. Typically, they put the father in the number 2 spot. And I know that's a little bit, hard to see. But if I'm number 1, then my father's going to be number 2 and my mother's going to be number 3. And then that will branch out their families to the right. So that is called a 5-generational chart. You can get those online. They're free, or we'll be able to furnish you one if you would like one. This one came from Family Tree magazine. So there's some key records and resources I want to make sure that you're familiar with. You got vital records like birth, marriage, divorce, death, and anything public. You got census records, and I'll comment a little bit more on that in a moment. You got newspapers. This is where lots of information can be. Military informations and records, all of the wars. You're going to, once you start on this path, you're going to think about, oh, I wonder if somebody served in the Civil War, or maybe somebody was World War II and so forth. You're going to look for anybody that might be an immigrant or naturalization. Some folks might have came through Ellis Island. If you're going back further, you're not going to have an Ellis Island. You're going to have to see what documents are available. Always have yourself a good map. Know about the land in the county or the city that you're researching. Get a little background. Find out, when was that county established? Did it break off from another county? And of course, you always want to look to see if there's any court cases and things like that, which is very important. And of course, with the court cases in different states, they might call them chancery court cases. And we'll have a handout and things like that, that you'll have some information and links to these census records and things. But they're available online, so you won't miss out on anything. So I want to make sure we're understanding what type of sources are out there. You got primary sources, and I'm going to say it very easy. Somebody was there and witnessed it, and that's where you're getting the information from. That could be from a personal record. Again, somebody is there at the time, whatever the event is. It could be from a diary. It could be government documents, or it could be a book, a day book, such as in communities, folks would come into a courthouse and things would get recorded. Those are primary sources when they could be personal, but somebody was there and witnessed whatever it is. It could be a birth, and somebody was there to talk about it, and you've got record or information about that primary source. But then what we most commonly come across is secondary sources. Of course, they're going to be the easiest to find, and they're most available to you as the researcher or the family historian. A lot of times you're going to find them right in the public libraries. Other than that, there's samples of published genealogies and town and local histories, atlases, and so forth. It might be biographies on people, but they would also be a secondary source because they were not there to witness or be involved with that person at that time. So where are the records, you say? Where's the information? It can be anywhere. And when I mean anywhere, I mean it could be anywhere. I have this thing I call the house repository. Everybody's got access to one of them. And you say, Shelley, what's a house repository? That is Auntie's house. That's the cousin's house. That's grandmama's house. That box you weren't supposed to mess with, or you weren't supposed to mess with the box up in the attic, or there's certain papers and things you weren't allowed to touch. Well, those things can be stored at relatives' houses. Might even be some at your own parents' house. You could have funeral home and cemetery information. There could be property records that were recorded. So you want to tap in locally with historical societies, public libraries, archives, and of course the house repository, which the most famous one will be attics and basements of your family members. And don't forget, it could also be a neighbor that has information about your family because they would have gotten it from their family. You want to question about who's in the neighborhood. And this is why I said, who's around your people? And if you're looking during the slave era, you're going to have to also research plantation owners. You're going to find out if there's any information about a specific plantation where your folks, if they were enslaved or if they are the slave owner. You want to find out what information is available. So also look for plantation owner descendants that might have wrote books or articles and things like that. A simple Google of the last name and the location might get you a little bit of information, and then you can go locally at the libraries and historical societies and so forth. So there are a lot of online. I'm going to give you just a few. Most of you are probably aware of ancestry.com. That is a paid site. FamilySearch.org is the Church of the Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as the Mormons. That is a free site. It will always be free. These are databases that have information that is scanned up and now available for the public to access. You got Cindy's List. It's free. It is a wealth of the United States, but also overseas, depending on where you're researching. And we have a new site for those that are researching African-American ancestry, and that's Black Pearls of Genealogy. Also look for people's blogs and articles or podcasts and things like we're having here today with AARP Michigan. Look for those online on YouTube. Google just the area that you're looking and finding out. So don't be worried about social media so much. You need to find out what's out there so you can tap into the resources like Facebook as well. So membership in society, Afro-American Historical Genealogical Society, also known as OGS. They are the only national African-American or Afro-American genealogical society in the country. They have been around since the late 70s. You've got the National Genealogical Society that covers everything in the United States. There is a professional organization called the Association for Professional Genealogists. If you are thinking about hiring someone, you can check within your local chapter, but also you can tap into this site where they will have bios and information on people who specialize maybe in certain areas and things like that. Local historical societies, state and counties, they also know who's doing research in the area. And also it makes sense that you connect in with that because you want to know who's doing what and where, and will they connect with when your people might have been there. So again, lots of information that's out there. So let me tell you a little bit about some common genealogies, and it doesn't matter what race that you have or not. These are typical genealogical challenge. When researching African Americans, you're going to have just a little bit more, but you're able to learn how to work through these things. So a lot of times just records just aren't going to be recorded, or they might have been destroyed. Maybe papers didn't get handed down. During the Civil War, my goodness, I don't even know how many times courthouses were burning throughout the South. So that's another reason there could be a challenge. So you got loss of records. And sometimes there's a person in the family that knows the information and they're not going to share it. They want that to go to their grave with them. Or maybe as a child, they're saying, we don't talk about this no more. So don't limit yourself to just online research, because that's really critical, because not everything is online. Remember, you want to exhaust that local community more than you want to tap in online. It'd be wonderful and very convenient if all of that stuff is online, but it is not. It is not. And we know this from years and years of doing this. And again, tap into those local places as well. Courthouse, cemeteries, and things like that. Name changes and name spellings are always different. Variations. I have the Goins family, Goins. I have 10 different spellings or variations of just that one surname. And also, if you're researching African American and you believe you might have had enslaved folks, just know that not everybody took the surname of the slaveholder. That's one of those myths that are out there because people assume that. But no, we had the opportunity to take whatever name we wanted, especially when we became free. During the colonial times, we saw a little bit more that people took on the slaveholder's name. So another thing you want to do, and this is something that I teach at Maggie that Dr. Clark mentioned, is so what? And that is analyzing what you have. If you have a document, you want to just pick it apart. You want to say, well, so what? I know my parents' name, or I know this person who passed name. What's next? So the so what should make you ask another question, but it's a deep analysis with what you have in front of you. If you have missing information, which causes a challenge, then you want to do the so what. Okay, maybe it doesn't have the parent's name. Well, so what? I don't have the parent's name. But now I want to think of what document would show parents of this person. So again, access to records, the accessibility or the scarcity, always a challenge, always. Maybe you got information from oral history that kind of changed a little bit or got turned around. Every generation might cite the same story a little bit differently. So you want to make sure you understand and you can stay focused. Oral history is precious, and there's so many clues and hints within it, and it'll be your challenge to try to get through that. If you have the opportunity, depending on where you're at in your research, you want to set a plan. You want to plan what you're going to learn about your family, the Murphy family, or whoever it is. What is it do you want to really find out? Did they come across the pond? Were they enslaved? What is it that you ultimately really want? And then you want to plan out. And I'm going to go through a few more records and things that you will see also that you will have that opportunity to ask questions to the record. And that's some of the so what. You're questioning what is on the record. And then you're saying, you know what? I probably need some supporting information to support what's on the record, because records could be incorrect. So you want to really focus on the local level, as I've mentioned before. Some people are scared or don't want to involve themselves in DNA. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Don't worry about it. It's okay. We'll get through it. I'll give you some tips on there. And again, don't let your current experience in 21st century thinking go back and try to judge whatever was happening. We know what happened. There's history. And the thing of it is, we have to get through it. We are descendants of slaveholders. We are descendants of the enslaved. We know what happened. That was the law. You want to find your ancestors and tell their story. And everyone that is a descendant, that meant somebody made it through and survived whatever the circumstances were. So don't let the challenges get you down and things. So things you need to know. You got to know the law, the community history. That's when I mentioned about tapping into the county. When did it start? Did the boundary lines change or anything? Or did it break off from another county? There's another technique by Elizabeth Shown Mills, and it's called the fan method. The fan method says, pay attention and look who's the friends, who's the associates, and who's the neighbors, who is around your people. You want to exhaust that local information as much as you can, because you think about it, everything that's up online came from that local level. Yes, it got digitized or copied, but it came at the local level. So it's originated there. You want to go to that source. So you want to always try to find somebody in the local area, to help you, that partner up with. And again, if it's African American research, you're going to research the white families as well. They're in the same neighborhood. there's a lot of connections. And again, you hear me say it again, not everything is online. I love the access, but just know not everything is online. So here's some methods and some strategies for busting some of those brick walls. Number one, you want to be organized. You want to keep good notes. You can use genealogy software. Using genealogy software like Family Tree Maker or Roots Magic. And there's other types that are out there. There's Legacy, Family Tree. And so those are places where you would build your personal information in. Yes, Ancestry and Family Search lets you put a tree up on their database, but this would be your tree on your database. I personally use my Family Tree Maker and Roots Magic only on verified, documented sources that are within my family that I have found. So what's on Ancestry is a public tree, hoping to find connections, right? And same thing for Family Search. So again, that's another opportunity to keep you organized. You're going to have a map. You need a map for every location that you're going to be researching. And if you can find an older map during the time your people are there, perfect. That helps a lot. And again, you want to be able to look at the sources, where they're coming from, and cross-reference. Because think about it. If somebody is, say, Albemarle County, Virginia, and all of a sudden I see the same surname in the next county, Fluvanna County, Virginia, are these people connected? All it takes is one family member to basically step out and go into another county and start a line. But that's still your family. So again, get a genealogy buddy, tap into the social media forums like Facebook and Instagram and so forth, and consider DNA. It's a wealth of information that could be coming. So here's a little tip that I do, and I teach this at Maggie. Every record creates a record. Yeah, it does. It really does. So what you're looking at is a death record on the left. I'm not fancy enough to make my stuff zoom in, so you got the whole list of the answers to the question that I'm asking over here on the right-hand side of the slide. So we got a death certificate. That means somebody died, right? So you know there's going to be other records that are created just because that record happened. It could be any record. So one of the things I want you to ask yourself, with whatever record you have, like a death record, ask yourself what other records are created once a death certificate or a death record is created. And I put a list of 1 through 5. There could be more. And this is one of the exercises we do at Maggie, is walking through to come up with all the other records that might have been created because this gentleman had passed. An obituary, coroner's report, cemetery, newspapers, church records. There could be more. You can even add more if you'd like. But again, that sets your path for your researching and where you're going. And that's part of the plan when you're planning out your research. Every one of those 5 that I listed there is another source for you to check out to help support that death record and the information that's on there. Another thing you can use is a timeline. Just like Dr. Clark said, I'm known for my timeline. I really hope more people will use a timeline, and there'll be a handout and you'll be able to access one of these and download it. The link is going to be in the chat. So what you want to do is fill this out. And the biggest thing is it has to be in chronological order. That means it's going to be in date order. So if I start with an ancestor and they're born, say, 1800, then everything after that is going to go after 1800. Every resource, every record, every marriage, every death, everything I am collecting, I am putting in this timeline. And I'm putting it by the date, the name who I'm talking about. Even if the name is misspelled, you still want it there. The big key for having a timeline is that you could hand it off to somebody and they can find the same information. Another person in your family that could be researching. So you're going to have the basics up there. You're going to have whatever age it is, whatever the event was, a birth, death, marriage, lawsuit, whatever it was. Location, where is it at? And you can actually put the resource in the column under the resource, but you can also put a hyperlink in there if you're going to share this electronically through email or something like that. Always include witnesses. Always have your questions that something doesn't sound right or anything you're thinking about, and you might want to number the questions that you come up on information you find. And it might be something in the difference of a census. Maybe one year the census says an ancestor is 40 years old and the next one says he's 60. Well, when we talk about census in a minute, you'll know the federal census only came around every 10 years. So there's something there. You want to try to resolve that and think, okay, well, was the first census incorrect or was the second? Because of the scarcity of the record, you might not be able to have an exact birth date, but you could have a range of years that they would have been born. Then after you're writing your notes and your questions, which will lead you to more, tell yourself when you did it. And then what are you going to do next? So it's a great opportunity keeping everything in one document. And so what I'm showing here on the screen is information, which you'll have this in the handout, the information that says what goes in these columns. And remember, they are by chronological order, which is very important because you're wanting to document their span of their life and who was involved and who was around them. Because what you can put in here, say automatically, when I look at this for the classroom at Maggie, I think about it. They should have census, right? Because we know they come out every 10 years. And the next slide will cover that. But also there could be a state census. Or wait a minute, maybe there was a buying and selling the land. Or if the person was enslaved, where maybe there was a gifting or a buying and selling of that that individual, but you have a document to support it. Or maybe you need to go get the document to see if you can support what maybe came down from oral history. So it's very critical to make sure you document in time order and where you got information from. So let's take a couple moments and talk about DNA. But before I talk about that, I want to make sure you understand that the census was every 10 years. That is federal. It only happens once every 10 years. We now have available 1950. So just so you know, states like Michigan did a census in 1894. So it was off the cycle. So a lot of times you'll see states that have census in between. And so again, you're going to look, that's why you got to exhaust at the local level, but you're going to exhaust that local area first. So now let's go ahead and talk about DNA. Oh my, are you thinking about it? I know you've seen these things on TV. You're watching Finding Your Roots, Long Lost Family, or Who Do You Think You Are, and so forth, or Ancestry and Family Search, both with their commercials and things. Well, DNA is interesting. People will use DNA to help find ancestors. Now, it can be very exciting and rewarding, but I want to put a warning. Sometimes information comes back from DNA that's not what you know or what your family knows. And so you want to, and my suggestion or recommendation is you want to prep your family. So a lot of your family probably knows you're doing this, going to take a DNA test or have your mother or grandmother, whoever, grandfather, and take a test. But you also want to discuss the chance that information could come back and it not be what you know. So again, it's a family affair. discuss it, and it's going to cost some money. Okay. And there's different reasons why people take these tests. Some take it just for the fun of it. You can take a test, look at the ethnicity percentages. Some people are finding more relatives. Some people who might have been adopted are seeking the biological family. Sometimes they're trying to build a community and see all of the connections. So again, there's several opportunities for why people want to take, a DNA test. A lot of people are going to find more family, which is definitely a good goal. But understand there's always risks that come with that when you take it. And again, looking for their family, building a community, also being fascinated by the ethnicity percentages of what race or what makes you up. So understand there's different types of tests. I've got the logos on the right-hand side. Those are the ones I am most familiar with. So also you can purchase any of these DNA kits online, but I wanted to make sure you had the logos to see because there's a lot of DNA companies out there. Okay. So there's 3 primary tests. Autosomal. That means it's going to look at your mama's side and your daddy's side. That's autosomal. Okay. But then Ancestry and 23andMe and MyHeritage, they are the companies that sell, and Living DNA, that sell this autosomal DNA test. And that means mom and daddy's side. So you're going to get a combination. But then Family Tree DNA, and you see their name there, they do a Y test. That is for males only. So why would somebody have a male test? Well, that male, and this test will say who his daddy is, his daddy. They also have the mtDNA test, which could be for both males and females, but it's going to trace the maternal line, the mother's line. So it'd be me, I take the test, and then it'll show my mother, her mother, and everybody that DNA connects. Okay. And so again, you got to look at who's been around a long time and so forth. These are the reputable companies that are out here at this time. So consider joining a group and also be persistent and also be patient when you're involved with that. DNA takes another expertise on the researching and things. Sometimes you might want to hire somebody and look into that. You can find those companies online, and also like Missing Links DNA and so forth. Also online shows also talk about the DNA. You want to keep the learning going. Just as I mentioned earlier, you want to make sure you're tapping into the other resources that are out there. You want to be able to ask questions, get a genealogy buddy. Like Dr. Clark and we engage in several different groups, but we also share information and tools and tips. So you document your findings. You want to share this family information with your family. Maybe it's at family reunions. Maybe you're going to write about the history. Maybe you're going to even publish a book. But the main thing is to tell that story and get behind and support the family that's doing it. So I want to thank you. This is my favorite little icon here, talking about just do. There is no try. And Dr. Clark, I see you there. Glad to take any questions. I appreciate everybody being here and hanging with me.
Well, Dr. Shelley, thank you so much. And you have generated so many questions. I know we're not going to be able to get to all of them because we only have 11 minutes left.
Okay.
But we will do our best.
Okay.
So the first one is, what do you do when you hit a roadblock in your search?
Well, sometimes I like to say a little prayer, but I also want to talk it out. And this is where I rely on working with a genealogy buddy. If I have something that's got me roadblocked, then I need to start talking it out and revisit what I have maybe I missed something.
Thank you.
I have a question. It says, how do you get started if you have Native American roots?
No different. Doesn't matter what you show up as. The records and the laws are going to apply to all of us in some form or fashion. You start the same way. You start with you and what you know and start following that same path that was on the slides.
Okay.
And I know Dr. Shelley is keeping these answers short so we can get to as
I
many
am.
as possible. How do you recommend recording family stories? What if some of us have heard different versions?
You want to record all of them. One of the things is if you have a smartphone, that's a great opportunity, or you're going to have the whole fancy stuff, the mic and the whole 9 yards. But you want to record them, but you want to make sure you're making note of who's telling the story and were they alive during that time and who also knows that story and what are the variations. You're going to be the only one that's going to resolve which way it's going to be, because you're going to collect from all of them.
Okay. Do you have any tips on how to research family internationally?
Absolutely. I just came back in November from Scotland and Great Britain. So absolutely, it's the same. Their records might be called a little bit different, but again, join the societies that's over there, the Facebook, social media. There's groups that might be researching. I have a lot of ancestors out of Scotland, a lot of ancestors out of Kent, England. I go right into them specifically. Also, there's certified genealogists over there, just like they are in this country.
Okay. This is a long question. I'm going to try to condense it a little. I've been researching a few years, and I've recently found updated information. My dad's name, someone updated it stating that it was incorrect. Who is providing these updates? I believe it was on Family Search.
Okay, so I'm going to make this real quick. So number one, somebody might have did research 10, 20 years ago. What's available now might be different and might be more. So you're going to collect the old and the new, but it's going to come back to you. So if the information is incorrect, somebody must have submitted it, but they might have seen it as correct at the time, and that's why they're doing it. And it gets uploaded into the system. So again, if it's something totally incorrect, you can contact Ancestry or Family Search and say that's incorrect and provide that information. You have that ability to do online as well.
Thank you. A question came in. What is the most reasonable search, genealogy search? And they didn't clarify if they meant financing, because I'm sure some are free, some are not, but reasonable.
What's the most reasonable genealogical search resource? Well, the first thing, the go-to for everybody is going to be the census, because it's public information. You can clock an ancestor every 10 years. Then you're going to go to those vital records. So you're going to find when the birth, death, and marriage, if it's possible. If not, you're going to look to alternative records to help support it.
Where can I find obituaries if family members are being uncooperative?
Wherever somebody died, there's going to be a record, supposedly, depending on what time. So you probably don't need a family member to obtain a death certificate or whatever it is. Go to find out to the local. Today, we have the local health department, where vital statistics office, where you go get records. Some of them could be online depending on what time. So you want, time frame you're looking at. So Family Search has what they call Family Search Wiki, WIKI. Go to the state that you're looking for on the wiki, and it will tell you what birth, death, marriage, and those records are available.
Okay. This is a personal question.
Sure.
I'd like to know, how much time are we talking about starting from scratch? I mean, am I expected to invest months? Could it be years? I mean,
Is she not looking at what we share?
I got it too. I want mine to be a little whiter, so that means I need to start this process.
The back of mine is all white, and this is not dyed. But anyway, I started in the late 70s helping my mother.
Okay.
But things weren't online.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're at the best time we could be to access things online. I would take out the time factor. Don't even worry about it. Just do it. Yeah.
And I will agree with you with the online. I recently did a search, just put in my great aunt's name, and she was probably born about 1905.
Mm-hmm.
A record came up that I'd never seen before from the state of Mississippi, from when it was her application, and the notes were in there, application to renew her notary license.
I love it. Yeah.
And the notes were in there from the commissioner from the state. Mm-hmm. And the things that they checked for a person's background in the late 50s and early 60s, the comments were very interesting. So yes, I noticed that.
And that leads you to find more information, because now you just saw something you hadn't seen before.
I've never seen before. So yes, that was encouraging. That was really encouraging.
Yes.
So let me ask you one more question. How would you encourage people to get their family involved, given that there's a lot of time involved here? A lot of different tentacles. You got any tips for getting other family members involved?
Well, number one, asking questions is always good, but that also turns off people as well. You ask too many questions, they're not going to share. So you're going to have to find that relative that's open to talk. But number one, if you have children, nieces and nephews and things like that, you're going to go target them, because you know why? They got the skills of the technology. Rope them on in there to help you. Not you get them to help you. And so helping you is also going to expose them, because when we're researching our ancestry, it is just like going through chemistry, biology, environmental stuff. It's hitting everything. Everything when you're looking back at somebody's ancestry. So there's a lot of challenges out there, but you know what? They love the challenges more than we do.
Yes.
And I know we are almost out of time.
Yes.
And so I want to turn it over to Brenda. This will be available on AARP Michigan's YouTube channel to answer that question. Dr. Shelley, thank you so much. I cannot thank you enough. You have given so much information to so many people, and I know this will be rewatched several times. Brenda, take it away.
Yes. I want to thank both of you, Dr. Murphy, Dr. Clark. This has been an exciting and very interesting conversation. I'm sure you've given us a lot of leads. The people in the audience, the questions were great. We want to thank you for joining us today. And as Dr. Clark said, you can see this again. You can use the link that you used today to get in to see it again. It will be by demand on YouTube. And I want to ask you to join us next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we're going to be looking at researching family land to identify your ancestors. We all have those stories about where our ancestors lived, and this is an opportunity to learn how to do that research. Make sure you drop down the link in the chat so you can get the documents that Dr. Murphy shared. And I want to tell you that she is a book publisher too. And the link to her book is in there. And here it is, Looking for the Murphy Farm. I just love the title.
Thank you.
It is a children's book, and you just do everything. And we thank you.
Hey, that's those ancestors speaking to us. You know, they call on us all the time.
And that is the theme for AARP's Black History Month this year, is celebrating Black excellence in community. And you showed us a genealogy, that you're an author. There's an opportunity to do it all. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for your time. This was a good show. Thank you, audience. Bye-bye.